Restrooms at the guest house. This is a story about a trip to the beach with 4 of my college friends. I had been looking forward to the trip for a long time because it was going to be with 4 people who had always been good friends. In fact, we had more fun than usual chatting in the car on the way there, and whenever we saw a sign or building that we didn't understand, we would laugh about it. And because we were so excited, we even got excited when we arrived at a very shabby guest house. We were like, oh my god, we spent too much money. I didn't see any other guests or employees when I was being shown around by the old lady who seemed to be the hostess, and I wondered if there were no guests even during the season because the inn was so shabby. The wooden floor creaked loudly, and there was no toilet in the room, but a communal toilet in the hallway. There was no toilet in the room, but a communal toilet in the corridor. The bare light bulbs hanging down from the top were covered with dust, and I wanted to tell them to clean up properly. Well, our room, which was a short distance away from the toilet, was surprisingly clean, and since we were mainly going to play at the beach during the daytime, we decided that it was okay. So we left our luggage in the room and went swimming. We had a lot of fun until the sun went down, ate dinner outside, and returned to the guest house around 9 p.m. I think. We had a few drinks and talked around, but after swimming all day and being tired from the trip, I was already sleepy and down by the time the sun went down. I took a nap at random. I suddenly woke up in the middle of the night. Around what time was it? Probably around 2 or 3 a.m. since I didn't feel like I slept that long. I could hear my friends snoring loudly. Everyone else seemed to be sleeping soundly. Then I realized that I really wanted to go take a shit, so I figured that was what woke me up. Well, I hadn't even peed yet since I came back to the guest house. I thought in my foggy head, geez, I'm going to pee in that bathroom at this time of night. I was careful not to step on my friend and left the room to go to the bathroom. I half groped my way through the darkened hallway, creaking on the floor. The light switch was on the outside of the bathroom. Remembering the condition of the naked light bulb, I wondered what I would do if it didn't work, but when I pressed the switch, it snapped on and the light came on safely. The light was very weak, as expected, but I could do my business anyway. I dropped my pants and began to clench them. The scene was so quiet and lonely that it hurt my ears. There was no sound other than the sound of me defecating and breathing. It's hard to take a shit. It's like I have a poop blockage. My feet hurt because it's Japanese style. She was so cute, wasn't she? I wanted to go back to my room as soon as possible, while thinking about various unrelated things in my head with the fear or loneliness of squatting in such a horrifying toilet in the middle of the night. Well, I had already taken out the big main thing, and now I just had to get the rest of it. When I first heard that, for a moment I thought, was I mistaken? I heard it again. The hallway outside was creaking. It seemed to be walking toward us. I don't think there was a guest room in the back, so I guess this bathroom was the destination. There seemed to be no other guests in the room in front of us or in the other rooms. Did this mean that one of my friends woke up and went to the bathroom? I thought that since I was not in the room and there was a light on in the bathroom, I could at least tell that it was not available, but maybe someone was about to leak, or had a stomachache, or was in a desperate situation. As if to confirm this, the someone was coming closer and closer without stopping, making a creaking sound as usual. I made sure that the inner lock of the lavatory was closed, and began to put strength into my lower body again, thinking that I had to get out of there as soon as possible. Finally, whoever it was arrived at the front of the latrine. If they knocked, it would be difficult for me to knock back due to my position. So I called out to whoever was standing behind the door to let him know that I was in first and that I was almost finished. Who is it? I'm the one who's in there. Sorry, I'm almost done. Or is it someone from the guest house? There was no answer. There was a crack and the light in the latrine went out. What? Hey, what's this? Stop this boring prank, will you? I shouted in panic in the complete darkness, unable to even see my own hands. "You guys are really being a pain in the ass," he said. "This bathroom is super scary." There was no reply. He seemed to be standing there behind the door and wouldn't move. I hurriedly finished the rest of my shit, thinking, damn, I'll beat the shit out of him if he leaves. As I was groping to remember where the paper was and rewind it, I heard him mumbling something behind the door. His voice was so low that I couldn't even understand what he was saying, let alone recognize any of his friends. He kept mumbling while I was wiping his ass, and I thought it was too much for a prank. I was already feeling less angry at the stunt, and more bitter and amused at how well it was done. I groped again for water and stood up. In the pitch blackness, I put my hand on the wall and looked for the inner key. The con nuke touched my hand. But even at that stage, the sound of running water made it a little difficult to hear, but he was still muttering in a whisper. "Hey, I'm leaving. Hey, I'm getting out of here. You really scared me. I'm going to open the door, so just stand back." I put my hand on the doorknob. It wouldn't open. I didn't understand what he meant. The knob does not turn. There is no such thing as an outside key in the bathroom, so why? I thought it might be broken, but it wouldn't turn even though I tried with both hands as hard as I could. Finally, I figured out why and broke out in a disgusting sweat. Someone standing outside the door was grabbing the doorknob with tremendous force and preventing it from turning. "Hey, I give up. I give up. Give me a break." I was beaming, but I don't think I was smiling. When the sound of running water completely ended and it was just darkness and mumbling again, I found myself sweating even more. Obviously, the mumbling was getting louder. It is the same that we cannot hear up to the content, but before the water flowed, it was a muffled whisper, but after the sound of the water disappeared, we can certainly hear the flesh voice properly. It was low, and I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. When I heard the voice, I panicked again. Because it was clearly not one of my friends. I had never heard that voice before. But if it wasn't a friend, there was no reason for me to do this. Who is this guy? Why is he doing this? What has he been whispering about since a while ago? Suddenly, the voice stopped. With a strong sense of foreboding, I closed the inner lock. At that moment, I heard a clunk from the knob. I couldn't turn it because I had locked the door. It was a couple of gurgling noises, but as I listened to it, I began to think that maybe it wasn't a person behind the door. That something started mumbling again. It was getting louder again. It was banging on the door as if it was remembering. And I suddenly knew, or somehow I was sure, that this mumbling voice was saying something uncommonly horrible. And I knew I mustn't listen to it, no matter what. To be precise, it was like I knew I shouldn't understand what it was saying. I had no proof, but I was sure of it, as if it were a strange and natural thing. I knew, for example, as clearly as I knew not to jump from a high place, that the consequences would be fatal. But there is nothing we can do about it once we know that. Instead, the voices are getting louder and louder. At this rate, even if I didn't want to listen, I would hear it, and if it was Japanese, I would understand it even if I didn't want to understand it. Before I knew it, I was crying. I called out my friend's name loudly, and shouted help, help, Nanmada, or whatever, just crying and screaming frantically. I wanted to cancel out the voices coming from the other side of the door by yelling. Still, it's strange. Since they are shouting so loudly so late at night, friends, people from the guest house, and other guests, if any, should be waking up. Meanwhile, the voices keep getting louder and louder. I had to keep screaming myself anymore to know exactly what they were saying. I hated myself for knowing somehow that I shouldn't be hearing this voice, that it was saying something outrageously horrible. I was screaming and struggling to hold down this doorknob, as if I was worried about just the key, but I knew I was done. I was screaming so hard my throat was in trouble. I'm sure the voices behind the door will get louder. I cried and cried and cried, wondering why this was happening and what was going to happen to me. I stuck my middle finger in my ear, covered my ear with the palm of my hand some more, and cowered, curling my back with my head toward the corner of the latrine. It was pitch black, so I couldn't tell which part of the toilet I was lying face down on, but I couldn't say I was dirty anymore. I didn't have the strength to scream, but if I didn't say something, my voice was getting so loud that even if I covered my ears, I would still be able to understand it. I don't remember what I said in my panic, but I think it was something like, "God, God, please help me." Praying to the God of toilets is a funny thing to think about now, coupled with the hit song, but at that time I was desperate. At that moment, someone touched my head. I was startled and looked up. I thought he had finally come in, but he was still mumbling behind the door. No, it wasn't mumbling anymore. It was loud. For a moment, I almost understood what he was saying, and in my haste, I shouted too. I hadn't heard a single word, but his pronunciation was definitely Japanese. I had no idea what to do, and I was so tired I didn't care anymore. I don't know what would happen when I understood what he was saying, but I was already throwing myself at him to do whatever he wanted. I removed my hands from my ears. At that moment, in the pitch dark, I felt a strong grip on my hand and a tug. What? While I was thinking, I went through the place where the wall was supposed to be. I mean, in the meantime I've already heard the voice from the other side of the door, but I can't get it out of my head, even though I can hear it. All my attention is drawn to the hand that's pulling me. I could run anywhere in the pitch blackness with no front or back, no left or right, no top or bottom, as I was pulled along, though I didn't know what it was. Gradually, that dreadful voice became more and more distant, and finally I couldn't hear it anymore. Tired of running, I stumbled. I fell down with a loud thud and fell on my buttocks. I was more mentally exhausted than physically. When it became clear to me that I had survived anyway, I fainted. When I regained consciousness, I was in the bathroom. Someone was banging on the door faster and faster. I almost panicked again, but the voices calling my name and "Are you okay?" were the voices of my friends. The most important thing was that the latrine was now brightly lit. The light is on. As soon as I unlocked the door, it opened with a bang. The faces of my 3 friends, except mine, were lined up in a row. They looked at me with worried faces, but I guess they were relieved that I seemed to be okay. "What are you doing yelling so loud in the middle of the night?" I instantly forgot about the happiness I felt when I saw my friends' faces, and I got angry, and yelled at them, "What the hell, it's not really you guys now." I yelled at them. My friends looked at me strangely. "What do you mean now? You were yelling for help in the hallway or in the bathroom, so we jumped up and came right over. Then you seemed to be in the bathroom, but you didn't answer our calls, and the guest house staff just arrived because of the commotion." I looked and saw the old lady who had shown me my room when I arrived here standing a short distance away. She looked a little annoyed and said something like, "Sir, is something wrong?" But it wasn't as if she was hiding something. She seemed to be worried that some insect or reptile might have gotten out due to our lack of care. I don't think they're really taking my friend's joke seriously. I said, "No, it's nothing." I went back to my room with my friends anyway. And there were some annoying questions, but I won't go into that. After that, nothing much happened. That's it. When I think back to my experience in that latrine, I sometimes wonder what was on the other side of the door, what was it that helped and pulled me through, but I don't know anything about the land or the inn or any stories of causality or anything that I can think of. Well, I haven't looked into it. First of all, there is a possibility that I fell asleep on the toilet and just had a nightmare. Or it could have been a prank by a friend. But the feeling of something pulling my hand and running was definitely real. There are no walls, but the floor is a latrine floor for all intents and purposes, and that's just not normal. And just as real as the certainty that I would have been in trouble if I had heard that horrible voice. I still haven't thanked whatever it was that saved me. I'll say it here while I'm writing this story. I don't know if it will reach you or not if I say it here after all this time, but this concludes this story. Thank you for listening to the end.